All right, we're here. So today we're going to talk about we had to turn the ads off. A successful luxury home builder. We're going to tell the story of someone we worked with and how we had to turn the ads off. So stay tuned.
Wow, very compelling. All right, we're your hosts. This is E-commerce Radio. I'm your host, David, and this is my co-host, John. And so today we're talking about how we had to turn the ads off on a successful luxury home builder, and kind of the process that we went into creating the website, the process that went into helping out with SEO, and the process that went into the ads. So much that we had so much success that we ended up having to turn those off in the interim. So what do you want to talk about first, John? Like starting off with the whole process of building a website from the ground up. Where do you want to kind of begin with this process?
Well, I think let's tell a story. So
Okay.
basically, we had worked with this one home builder client for a while, had some success, and there was something happened with the owners, and it kind of split, and one of the owners wanted to go off basically and start his own brand of his own home building brand. So basically we had done quite a bit of work with this other brand and had quite a bit of success, and he was starting from the ground up. Basically he had a couple of some jobs that he was doing for referrals, and they call it spec homes or investors, but he really didn't have a good lead flow. He had no leads coming in for people who wanted to build luxury homes. So we were kind of tasked with helping him build out, create a new brand and kind of build that out. So I think the first thing, one of the first things we did was we had to figure out what we were going to call it, right? What was going to be the name of this brand. And I think, that's one of the things we all struggle with is naming our brand. I know I struggle with that often.
Absolutely,
E-commerce radio is kind of an easy one. We got the URL and we're just like, it speaks to a lot of stuff we do. So, but in a lot of cases, it's picking a brand name and being careful about the one you pick. I think there's some general rules to follow when you pick up a brand name. David, do you want to speak to that real quick? I can go over my list of rules in a second.
So general rules is we have like a list of things to do. I would say number one rule is to make sure that your brand name is short and easy to remember. Typically, we want to keep it around 15 characters. Ideally, you want to use something that is it's very hard, like that has a URL. So typically what I'll do if I'm thinking about building out a brand, I want to go to a site like GoDaddy that has like a search engine, maybe write out some different brand names and then throw it into their bulk search engine to see which ones pop up. Because if you don't have a website for your brand, then it's not like you're going to be able to run Facebook ads or be able to run Google ads to that domain, or you have to kind of use a different abbreviation of that, which can be a little bit tricky. Another thing too, in thinking about just kind of the overall URL structure, looking to see if somebody else has built a brand next to it. So this is a problem that I have currently on my website, where my website is DTW Designs, and there is another brand out there called DTW Design, and sometimes like both get confused. And so looking into the plurals, looking into to see if there is another brand that has your name is something that I would highly recommend doing. Outside
I
of that,
I could speak to that real quick. I mean, we had another case recently where somebody we know got actually a letter, a notice saying that they had to change their name because they had something that another business was using in their name. It was even pretty general, but because they were in the same space, they got a letter from a lawyer that said, "Hey, you have to change their name." And so we had we had all the socials built out with this one name. So we wanted to include that, if possible, at least part of the name. And we were allowed, it was 2 words. We were allowed with one of the words to keep using that. So then we couldn't find a like very easy .com, for example. I would always recommend a .com. Stay away from the other URLs just because people aren't used to them yet. And it's not as ideal, but but basically we got something like, adding an action word to it. Like, there's a ton of different words that you could use: join, live, whatever it is. But think of a word that you can use with it. That could be a potential that you could use for that brand name. But then along with the lines, what you said, like 15 characters, that kind of comes from the social profiles. A lot of the social profiles will limit your that you can only have so many characters. So it's generally, you don't want it too long. It's also becomes a pain to type in if it's too long. So it's not all these rules are kind of like not hard, and they're not rules that you must follow, but there's kind of a general rules like that.
General best practices, you would say.
Right. So what you were saying, my process is usually think about all the words that you use or your customers use for your business. Take those words and try to combine them. I would avoid coming up with new words unless you got a really big marketing budget. It can be very difficult. People are always going to wonder how to spell it. That's one of the problems with my domain, johnfschuster.com. Like, people can't spell it very easily. It's long. So that is difficult. You want to have something that's easy to spell. So like I said, take a bunch of words, and then you could use a tool. There's one called Merge Words that I've used before. I think it's mergewords.com, or at least used to be. And then you can basically take a bunch of those words, combine them, and come up with this list of potential names. You can then, if you have, say you have like 500 words, you can post it into the GoDaddy has a bulk domain tool. It's kind of hidden. In fact, I don't even think they link to it anymore. So maybe we'll put that in the comments, but you can use that and you could paste in that list of all these words that are merged together. You don't have to have the .com on it. It will automatically add that. And you paste it in there and it'll tell you, okay, these are all the available domain names. And from there, you can kind of refine it even more. So that's kind of the first sort of step. As far as other rules, I mean, it can go into like, is it easy to spell, right? Like we just talked about. Is it interesting? Sometimes you got to be careful too. Like David said, is there somebody who has a domain that's very close to it for multiple reasons, making it hard for you to find? Just like there is a johnschuster.com actually, or there was. I think it's like dead right now. But there's another business just like that name. Another person has that URL. Few of the rules I've written down: can your employees say it proudly? We had a recent one. We were thinking about rebranding the agency name from johnfschuster.com to what was it?
JFC Commerce.
Yeah. I almost don't want to say it because we ended up going away from that because it was like, if you typed it in a certain way, you got like a porn site. And so we took that name, and I had already come up with the logo, and we had printed some marketing material, and I just threw that name away because I was like, I don't even want that chance to happen. So yeah, for us, that was getting rid of that. But anyway, once you figure out kind of the good name, you can run it by some people. But for sure, you want to get a .com. Absolutely. Even if you got to add, like I said, an action word to or a verb to it, that's fine. But then you also want to check the socials. Like, what are you going to use for the social? And ideally, you can use the same kind of social for the brand across the different channels. Facebook and Instagram have the @ I think that's a really good idea to have that. If you can have the @ and all the different channels.
Right. And speaking of socials too, the next issue that we had are with the branding and with coming up with a brand is creating a logo, right? And so typically what we do for a logo, are we okay sharing all that information, John, before I like jump into like how we kind of source out logo files?
Well, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't think we tell everything. We don't want to give you all our secrets, but we can tell you basically kind of the process. We might actually tell you if you join our private email list or group. We'll tell you a lot more of these, but basically, for a logo, we tend to like to crowdsource the logo. Ideally, ideally you find somebody that you can work with that's a good artist, that's not very expensive. Art's one of those things too that you can generally source internationally. Somebody who
Mhm.
knows if something looks good. It goes beyond somebody needing to speak English, like for writing content or writing English. So I would say get several artists. I think it's always better than just getting one, and then have them come up with concepts, give them a good understanding of what you want, or show them. Usually, David, you can speak to this. We usually find some examples of
Mhm.
logos that we like, right?
Right, and I would highly recommend too that if you do sourcing, um, typically you can get like a pretty big excess amount of logo files delivered to you. And ideally what I do is I take the top 3 that I like personally and then show those to the client, because there's this rule in just like in any design world. The rule is that you show your client the best ones, and typically they'll pick the one that you dislike the most. So you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward, and that you can be okay like living with them having like this specific logo as well. So yeah, and the way we've done it in the past, crowdsourcing, I feel, is just like the best way to do it. It's one of the cheaper options, and plus, like with art, I find that clients typically like to see like like a product and then make adjustments to it. And doing that kind of work with only like one logo file is very difficult. Having multiple examples and having different artists do that is way easier. Um,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, you could always take parts of it, right? Like you could take parts of the one logo and say they like this and they like this font, and usually you'll get something. Although there's been a few cases where the end product, I'm like, I can't believe they like this thing. I don't really like it sometimes, and
yeah,
that's just the way it goes. Though people are going to like certain things. Art is very much in the eye of the beholder. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder with art, and so the client, your logo, you have to really like it. I think that's the most important. And your audience should like it. That's why I think it's a good idea to take your logo and run it by a few people who are in your audience for your business and just see what they
mhm,
think. Are they going to be honest with you? I think that's another question. Well, so like a story real quick, like we designed this one logo for this particular home builder initially, and I think we had sourced. They had an idea of what they wanted, and it was a certain look, and basically we went through the revision process, and then we came out with a logo that at the time I thought was pretty decent.
mhm.
But then we started hearing weird things from people, that the logo kind of looked like a daycare center or something, right? Wasn't that
Right.
the feedback?
That was
Right.
that was the feedback, and it's the thing I like joking about the most with with
Yeah,
John.
and that was because it was kind of bright looking and a little bit sunny looking, and it didn't it it didn't really. I get it now when I look at it, I can see that. And so we ended up getting the logo redone. They had an artist, and it actually looks very good.
Mhm.
It's a little more classy. It does sort of speak a little more luxury. I think that's important, right? Your logo does need to fit the audience.
Right.
That's something for sure you gotta do, because I mean different logos are going to be okay for different audiences.
Yeah, and plus it saves you a lot of work down in the long run too, because I know that they had to switch out their logo in multiple places. They had a whole printed sign that they ended up having to switch out, and switching it out on social media and stuff like that. That's actually currently an issue that's going on in with one of my podcasts that we do off to the side, is that I'm now trying to change the brand, and like remembering like to go back through all my socials and change everything. It becomes very much a hassle, and so
Yeah,
being
yeah.
careful with your audience and being careful with your niche is very important.
Just a big of a hassle if you got to change your URL, like we talked about that
Oh yeah,
one client.
that one's probably a little more huge, because you have
Yeah,
to worry about redirection and
yeah, SEO, search engine optimization, all that becomes a factor with that. But yeah, I mean, you are going to revise your logo. I mean, if you look at a lot of the big brands, they don't use the exact same logo for 25 years. Usually they'll update it somehow, because what looked good 10 years ago or 20 years ago doesn't necessarily look good today. So you do see that. But yeah, the big change, the one that you want to avoid is getting that URL right the first time. But yeah, I think that was a good lesson for us, I think, in regards to logo. So hopefully that helps.
So
Yeah.
talking about like
One thing. Wait. We forgot to say, most important, get your logo source file.
oh right, yeah.
Make sure you get the source file, because a lot of these logo creators, they'll just give you like a JPEG or a PNG or a PDF of it. Ideally, it is an AI file. That's right, David?
Yeah, ideally it's an AI file, or I know I've seen people use vector files before. That's like another big one that everybody seems to use. But I personally recommend AI because a lot of people have Adobe Suite and Adobe Illustrator. So if you need to give that off to some other developer, or not developer, some other
Designer.
graphic
Yeah.
designer, then it's a lot easier to
Yeah.
translate
So
that.
yeah, you want to own that, because it's really hard to recreate it. If you don't have that, you're gonna have to pay another designer to recreate your logo with an editable file, because you want to resize it and change where
Yeah,
it's laid out.
basically what we were taught in college was we even took like a class where we had a old logo that was a fuzzy like JPEG, and what we did was we took the pen tool and we just like retraced it, like we redraw it like the logo, and
Yeah.
it was kind of painstaking. And so if you want to pay a good designer, like who would roughly go for like $150 an hour to like just retrace your logo, and you want to avoid that in the future, I would highly recommend that you get that source file.
Yeah. All right. So let's we're just getting into the, I think, the good stuff here.
Mm,
So we talked about the logo. Now let's kind of, we're moving more into the website creation and
mm,
the thoughts we had around that, and then the marketing as well, which does go into that. Um, Being that this was a home builder, a local home builder, we wanted to kind of build the site with SEO in mind, right? Thinking about the different pages we were going to have, how we were going to structure it. Really important for any kind of local service business is that ability to have those local pages, and we'll kind of go into that here. So, David, what was kind of the thinking? And I mean, I guess the logo does drive a lot of the colors, because I think we did change up a lot of the colors when we changed the logo. But
mhm.
what was your thinking with that? And I know I had a lot of feedback for you on what we should do for SEO, but go ahead.
Mm. Well, as far as the actual look of the homes and of the layout, we already kind of had a lot of that kind of built in with previous designs that we worked on, and so we kind of use those our previous designs as templates to kind of build out how the general structure of a lot of the homes would be. We then typically what we'll do is we'll do a lot of market research and look at other competitor sites, see what they're doing as far as the luxury home space, and then do our own kind of spin on it. As you kind of learn through design, not everything is like everything that's been done has been done, right? So what you're really doing is you're really like reworking somebody else's ideas into kind of your own idea, and that's what we really focused on with the homepage. We found like this really good slider idea that we had that's posted on the main page of the site. And then as far as color scheme is concerned, my my main thought process on color scheme and like picking out your colors is that it really should be uniform throughout the site. Like you're not going to make a site that's color screen uh, color palette is like red and blue and then have like an orange in there, right? Like you have to be very careful in selecting your colors, and I typically like matching the colors with the actual logo file as well, because then it just makes everything look a little bit more uniform, look a little bit cleaner, and it's just it's kind of like the process that we've been following over the time. And
Yeah,
so the biggest, yeah.
I was gonna say, like, don't go crazy with like colors with your fonts and all this. I mean, we've had some clients and in the past where they want to have like one color red, one color yellow, and one color pink or something of the text, and all over the site. It just makes the site look like a mess. I really like what you said too around competitors. I think with any website project, go look at the competitor sites. I mean, sometimes in some spaces there really isn't any good competitor sites, so
Yeah.
you can even go beyond that and look at just websites in general in different industries and find ones that look really good and function well. And sometimes something that necessarily looks really good doesn't always convert really well, so you want to try to find a company that is doing well, that the website has a lot of traffic preferably and is getting leads, because sometimes some things that are ugly do actually work, although I would argue maybe not quite as good as if it looked a little bit better. I mean, as long as it looks kind of professional, fits your brand, I think that's important.
Yeah, with luxury home builders though, you can't
That's true,
can't
because
afford that. Yeah.
they're in. I mean, they're in the design space, right? They design and build these things, and so design and making sure it looks good is important,
Mhm.
for sure.
And that was a really big help too, specifically on this project, is that one of the biggest problems that we have is getting content from the clients, specifically images and text. Typically, we have to write out our own content, and like we look at keywords and like look at like local rankings and look at again competitor sites, see what they're writing about, so that we can get the products in. But I've had a lot of experiences with other local businesses where either they're taking their own photos with their iPhones, like of their like general office grounds, and it doesn't look quite as good, or they just don't have any images currently set. And so with this builder, like obviously they had a lot of really great images. They had great images of their homes and like different settings. But it is something to be considerate about. It's like if you're going to build a website, having a little bit of a budget to maybe hire a photographer or hire somebody to get images for the website, or just source out images from like sites like 123RF or Pixabay, or like having that kind of in mind as far as your project budget is also very important.
Yeah, you can buy stock images. You can, stock is always not as good as the real thing if you
Yeah.
did, but I mean, unlike social media, social media is a little more forgiving. I think when you use those images on your website, they don't always look quite as good. So yeah, having a professional photographer for your website photos does help, especially if you're in the design space. That's probably, like with this client, it was more important. So as far as those free image sites are pretty amazing too, right? Because you
Yeah.
can find a ton of images, and
Yeah.
that can be helpful.
Yeah. I would
Um,
say my number one recommendation for a free image site is still probably Unsplash. Now they recently got acquired by Adobe Stock, and so it's been a little bit more limited selection. But Unsplash is like a site where it's like professional photographers will just upload those, and those are completely commercial free images. And so that's typically what I will recommend, or what I end up using if I can't find another good like stock image for website projects.
yeah, I've used that one before.
Mhm.
So let's kind of talk about the sort of structure of the site and what's important, I think, from a local perspective. Um, One of the things that we do, or from an SEO perspective, one of the things we look at when we do our sites is we're looking at the outline, the document outline, like making sure every page has like an H1, and that the H1 follows an H2, and its structure is right. You don't have like an H2 at the top of the page followed by an H1. So when you're designing a site or having a site designed, that's really important to understand that the way something looks on the website is not necessarily what it is as far as, say, a headline or not. That
Right.
HTML and the CSS is kind of technical, but those are
Yeah.
different things. So the size of something on the page is different from what it is as far as what Google sees, right? Whether it's a title, headline, H1, H2, these are common SEO headlines within the articles. So that's one thing. I know we always look at that. And then in regards to a local business, especially, well, this could apply to really any service business. We kind of go think about the difference between pages and posts, right? As far as for SEO. So I like to say a post is something more timely, whereas a page is something that's kind of evergreen that doesn't change really that often. So that would be a good example in this case with this client would be creating a page or a city page in reference to what they do. So like home builder location, home builder Seattle, or home builder San Francisco. Those would be city pages. Those would not be blog posts. Whereas a blog post might be something like the best, 10 best things that you should include in your custom home, right?
Mm.
That's a blog post, or an interview. If they did that, that could be a blog post. But pages, city pages, service pages that tell each, having a page dedicated for each of the things that you do is really helpful. For this client, what did we do in regards to pages?
We ended up building, like you kind of brought up, a lot of different community and a lot of different city pages. So specifically, we're located in Washington, and that's where this home builder is located in. So anytime that we created a page, or a city page, we would create a page with the URL. We used this thing called custom post types, which we're able to change a little bit of the URL to add. So the URL would be custom home builder city Bellevue, which is a city in Washington, right? And so we would build out that page. On that page, we would have our content that was SEO optimized. So we have our H1, our big header that says custom home builder in Bellevue, and hopefully we would be ranking for that in Google. And then we would have our content listed below, and then underneath that as kind of our kind of sales funnel, or we would have the different homes that were listed specifically in that home builder. And it was it was kind of a beast to build that functionality out. But it also showed customer value. And so if somebody clicks into that, they inquire about that home, and then that leads to a potential sale in the future.
Yeah.
And
That layout is actually, if you think about it, it's very similar to e-commerce, right? So
yeah,
you might go to a collection page, or a collection in Shopify, or a category in WooCommerce. And within that page, you're going to see all of the products that are in that collection. Well, in this case, the collection might be a city page, and then you're going to see all the homes or the projects within that city, right?
mhm.
So
And I
that's
would, yeah. And speaking on that too, I always recommend with local businesses, like even though you're not technically speaking a e-commerce store, you should try to think of yourself that way in some aspect. Like I was working with another client who didn't really get a lot of contact forms filled out, and so one way that I kind of solved that issue was that I ended up building a contact page or contact form on like the sidebar. And so we have a sidebar contact us section. If people want to inquire about anything, they have immediate access to a contact us. And so they fill that out and then send that on their way. Like having that kind of sales funnel and thinking about your website as really a tool to generate sales is important. Like you don't, people get like excited about just having the website and having their content written on the website, their about us page and things like that. But what your website really should be built for is to generate sales, like in no matter what it is that you're doing. And so that's kind of the process we took with this custom home builder as
Yeah,
well.
I kind of feel like what you're saying there with the contact us on the sidebar. I feel like sometimes that's like one of the weaker sort of calls to action on a
Yeah.
sidebar, but free consultation or something like that could be great. And then I think there's different people at different levels in the funnel. When we say a funnel, that's somebody, they call it top of funnel. That's somebody who's not, maybe just sort of showing interest, but not really at that point of making a purchase, where the bottom of the funnel is. So one of the things that we do on all of our sites, or a lot of our sites, is we'll have something that's really top of funnel. It's like, get this free thing by giving us your email address, right? Something like that. That is a great way to get people who are kind of very top of funnel, just kind of poking around, looking, thinking about it. And then maybe something more lower funnel would be, request a quote, or, get a free consultation. That's somebody who's actually looking to take action, and they're going to fill out that form. But it's a great way is get them on your email list, right? Use that top of funnel call to action, give them something of value, get them to sign up, and then you can sell them down the road with email, right? So that's a fantastic way to do it.
Yeah,
Um,
we should write that down to talk about that in a later episode, because there's a lot of ideas that you can think of for top of funnel, and I think some people get overwhelmed with how many ideas there could possibly be. So maybe that's something.
Yeah, the top of funnel is kind of a fun one. We've gotten a lot better at that, I think, over the years. But top of funnel is really important because that's really the start of your funnel, right? Especially when it comes to cold traffic. We say people who haven't heard of you before, they're not usually not going to buy from you right away. They're just kind of, you got to get their information so you can follow up with them. And you can do some of that with social media as well, but email is one of the most effective for selling people down the road for sure. We're almost to the part about why we had to turn the ads off.
Right. So
right.
what was the ad strategy? Because I know that I did a lot on the SEO side, and SEO is very much so a slower building funnel, where you build it out and you're kind of like over time, and then eventually you get more and more traffic, but it's over the course of a couple months, whereas like ad work can be revved up
months, if not years. Yeah. So so the strategy with the ads initially was to do a combined Facebook ad strategy and Google ad strategy. Probably splitting the spend 60% to Google ads and 40% to Facebook, which also includes Instagram. But the beauty of Google ads is you're going to get those people that are going to be lower in the funnel, because people, when they're usually ready to buy, they're going to search something like, they might search home builder in this city, right? And we might rank for that organically, but we might not yet. So we can get a Google ad to show up right at the top there to try to capture somebody who's maybe already interested in looking for that. Whereas on the other side, Facebook ads, that's going to get somebody who's, they're looking at photos of their kids and their friends and looking at videos, and they're not really in that mindset to search for that. So you need to kind of warm them up, right? So with that strategy, we're usually showing them pictures of or video of beautiful homes. And then we're sort of giving them a call to action to come check out the site or download this thing. And that kind of allows us to put them in our funnel to where they're going to convert down the road. But that's Facebook ads generally for something, especially in the home building space, is going to be a little bit longer strategy. But there is the retargeting audience, which is also one we used all the time, and it's probably the most important audience if you're going to be running Facebook ads. It doesn't cost a lot. Retargeting your website visitors, retargeting people who signed up for your email list, that means showing them an ad, right? Show them something after they've engaged with you. They've been to your site, they're going to see something from us. And the cool thing with those people is you can do it over time, right? So you can keep reminding them that you're there. And I think that's really effective, especially when it comes to a larger purchase, is showing them something over time. Where Google ads is going to get them that click, that when they go and search for that thing, they're going to come and they're going to click over. Whether they convert or not is a different story. Convert meaning fill out a lead form or something like that. That's a different story. But Facebook's going to be good for, they came to the site with Google ads, but they didn't actually fill out the form. So we're going to show them some, video of these cool homes that we built. And then, we're going to follow up with, we're going to get them to come back to the site. We're going to message us on Facebook. That's really, I think, a key thing. So yeah, run Facebook ads. Now, if you're talking about Facebook as a cold audience, people who never even been to the website, that's where you still want to go that way of engaging them and showing them something that maybe piques their interest, or like, I've thought about building a custom home, and then follow up with them from there. So that's kind of the general ad strategy. So, and it was very effective. I mean, it worked really well. We didn't even need to spend that much. I mean, just to put a number to it. I mean, with most local businesses, your ad spend, a good starting ad spend would probably be about $1,000 a month. You could even do it for less. You could do it for $500 a month, but Google is going to eat up that ad spend pretty quickly, depending on the vertical, depending on your business. The cost per click on Google varies greatly, right? It could be as low as $1 a click and as high as $100 a click. Unusual. If you're like a lawyer, some of the car accident type searches can be pretty high, like $100, which is crazy. But I'd say on average, it's probably in that $3 to $10 range per click. But you can see the importance. If you're running Google ads, you got to have a good funnel. You got to have something to capture their information, and you want to be following up, because on the other side with the Facebook ads, that retargeting audience, I might only need to spend like $5 a day. I might not even need to spend, what is that, $150 a month for retargeting. I mean, compared to me spending $1,000 on the Google side. Yeah. So it definitely important. If you're going to be running Google ads, you got to have that funnel. You got to have that way for people to fill out that get a quote form, that free whatever it is, or download this. Really important. So are we at the part where we turn off the ads? I think we're almost there.
Are we almost there? Well, we ended up having a form builder, and I think what was it that really stopped the custom homes from needing more advertising? Because I remember we ended up switching the form builder from HubSpot to Monday.com.
That's a whole nother story. I mean,
Yeah.
that actually had nothing to do with the ads. They were just getting busy and they needed a way to track it. And so we had to use HubSpot with their salesperson to try to make that work, so that they were following up on all the leads they were getting, because they were getting a lot of leads and their follow-up process wasn't very good. And so we integrated the lead forms with HubSpot, and that worked to a point. And but they turned out they didn't really, in the end, they didn't want to use HubSpot after using it for a year or so, and we ended up moving to Monday, to some much more customized sort of setup for the following up on the leads. But I think this is so important. I just talked with a client today in a totally different space, and he's like, we're running Google ads for him. He's getting leads. It's working. This is actually in the medical space. It's working, but the front office will maybe call the lead, or they'll email the lead, maybe call them. And if they call them one time, they won't even leave a message, and they won't ever follow up. So I think that gets where I like it when we're doing so well that the focus moves outside of the lead gen side, outside of the front, to the back office, to the follow-up, to the sales, because that's really important. I mean, we have a couple of clients right now that's the case. We have done a good job. We are getting leads. The SEO is working. The traffic is bringing leads. The ads are working. It's bringing leads. But that follow-up, that's where we often will work with the client and tell them, hey, what's your follow-up look like? Are you responding to the lead right away? Evidence shows, if you respond to a lead as soon as possible, like literally the lead comes in, pick up the phone, call them. The sooner you respond to a lead, the more likely that lead is going to become a sale. Now, I mean, this is even the case for us. If somebody fills out a contact form, or says, hey, John, can you help me do this project? And I don't answer their email for like 3 or 4 days, there's a good chance that they're not going to be pretty confident that I'm going to respond to them if they became a client, right? They might have already found someone else too, right? You might have found another solution, right? So it's really important to follow up as quickly as possible, and then follow up more than once. I think we have a flow for one client where it's basically they call the lead, they text the lead, they email the lead. Those 3 things. If they talk to the lead and they'll try to schedule an appointment with the lead will come in. But if they don't hear on that first, they're going to follow up with a text like a few days later. They're going to follow up with another call. Maybe they're not going to leave a message this time. The first one, they would leave a message. They're going to send another email, right? And that could go on. Some sales funnels that I've followed and that we've used to some extent involve following up, 9, 10 times, 12 times. And then eventually because that lead kind of leaves the status of being a good lead, kind of put in the back burner. But yeah, follow up so crucial to that. So, but yeah, I think that's where we almost get to where we turn the ads off, because we started the CRM, back to that story, to the CRM HubSpot. We started having follow-ups with the salesperson was doing a better job following up. They got really busy because a lot of the leads closed. In fact, so busy, unless they scale, they really are at a point where they're getting enough just with the organic, because the organic SEO doesn't stop working, right? Organic SEO keeps going. As long as you keep working on it, it's generally going to keep going. And so the ads was one thing where we could turn it off. What's funny is with this one client, we almost worked ourselves out of a job because we were so successful that they're like, I don't need any marketing anymore. I don't need to do anything anymore because we're getting enough leads. But one way we could save the client money and at the same time still continue to help them was, we don't need the ads anymore. Let's turn the ads off. So there goes an extra $1,000 plus into the budget, because we don't need to run ads, because the SEO is still kicking, still bringing leads, and we're busy enough. And, one of the things I've seen too with some clients is they'll turn on and off the ads when they need additional work. Now, with Google Ads, I don't always recommend turning it completely off. Turning it down is usually a little bit better than turning it off, just because the ad account, the way it learns, reducing the spend is usually better. But yeah, I mean, that's a great option. If your organic traffic is bringing you enough work and you're doing enough with, say, social and all these other channels, and you're getting enough business, fantastic way to sort of save money. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why people spend so much on SEO and creating content for their websites, is because it does pay dividends, and no one can really take it away from you either, right? Like it's not
Google
like,
can.
Well, Google can, yeah.
Magically. It usually doesn't happen like that. Usually it's sort of like you might lose traffic, or it's usually not a horrible, like, we're going to take all your traffic, unless you did some black hat stuff, like build bad links or something. Usually you're not going to happen. But yeah, SEO is an investment. I mean, it's not cheap. A good SEO company is not cheap. And there's a lot of fraudsters, and there's a lot of black hat that could get you in trouble. But real good SEO means building pages, building content, trying to build real links. And just over time, it's going to reap dividends. But usually for SEO, I tell clients, I mean, you're looking at a minimum of 6 months of some solid content creation and SEO work to really see any ROI, to start seeing that traffic grow. But if you hold in there, you get past that 12-month mark, that's where you really can start to see it start working, and then it can just continually grow from there. And the more you do it, the longer you do it, the better it is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. So what do we want to talk about? Some more technical stuff here.
Well, we're about 45 minutes in, so.
Oh, we are? Okay. Well, if you're still listening, congratulations again. We have a free giveaway. Just comment that you actually heard this part of the message.
All right.
David will send you his prize. Don't you have a prize?
Do I have a prize? I'll, you know what? I'll message the person and then say.
No, that's not a prize, man. Yeah. We'll think of something. We'll give something away. Yes. Yeah. So comment that you heard this. Say, I don't know, I heard this in the comments. I don't know, or something.
Comment what was your biggest takeaway from what we discussed this I don't know, this Friday afternoon, I guess.
Yeah, comment with your takeaway, or maybe even just drop your business name in there if you want us to look at it. If you're too shy to do that or don't want to do that. just, yeah, whatever your takeaway is. We're looking forward to doing these in, the lives, but we're also going to be dropping some other content. We've been experimenting with reels a little bit. Reels are great for organic social right now. We're hoping to do some long form in sort of instructions and sort of more technical, showing you how to do certain things. We're going to talk about email marketing. We're going to talk about e-commerce SEO. We're going to dive really deep into SEO and a couple local SEO, even more so than we did today. We're going to talk about these WordPress builders. The list goes on, but if you do have any topic ideas, you could also leave that in the comments. Follow us on, we're on, where are we at? Instagram, Facebook, TikTok,
YouTube.
TikTok has been a growth experience for me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I hear you really enjoy it. Like really see like lots of dancing.
I'm learning. It's fun, man. You do get good reach on there. I mean, I didn't even really do much. We'll see how the video I posted today does, but
I posted one video that I posted on Instagram Reels, and on Instagram, I thought it was kind of like it would be like organic growth where it exponentially goes up. But with TikTok, I posted this one video that had like 300 likes on Instagram, but then on TikTok it had like 100 likes. So it's interesting. It's interesting playing around with it. It's been a lot of fun, like a big fun experience.
Yeah, it's good. We're trying to do much more organic social generation than we traditionally done, because most of our social generation with the agency is like, okay, we're going to create this social post for this ad, right? That's usually, maybe we'll post if we're doing an SEO piece, we'll post that. But getting more into the reels is great. We do a lot of video anyway, so I think it's a natural flow for us. So it'll be exciting. But please stay tuned, subscribe. I hope this was exciting, David. You needed to move around more.
I'm excited. Like the problem is I don't have a mic stand right now, so if I move around too much, I can't hold it.
All right, yeah, and I didn't even tell anybody. I'm like in California right now. I'm on sunny California. There's like a
you look
pool.
tanner somehow.
I think this is the background's like yellow walls in here.
Yeah, it's definitely the lighting, but
all right. Thanks so much, everybody.
All right. Goodbye. Let's see. It's ending broadcast.